And good day to everybody here. Welcome again to the Questions of Fire podcast. This is an unusual one, and I'm delighted to say that we're putting a panel together for the first time. Mostly I do one-on-one interviews with many people, but today, because of a subject that is of interest to many people, and we're not quite aware of what it is, we brought together three people who have got their hands dirty, rolled up their sleeves, and begun investing, understanding, and getting us ready by having this conversation around the metaverse. So let me introduce who's online. Firstly, we have Antonio Velardo. Hi, Antonio. We'd like to just say hello.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And secondly, we have Hussein Hashish. Hello, Hussein.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning.
Excellent. And we do have Mehdi Farouk. Hopefully he'll be joining us in a minute. We're having a couple of technical issues, but that should not be any issue. So first of all, what we really want to get into is the metaverse. And let me give my background, and I'm going to imagine that the panels are going to educate me to some degree. Is the metaverse for me has existed for quite a while because I have four boys. So boys like to game. So they have all sorts of different worlds, and they use my credit cards for all sorts of different currencies, from V-Bucks and every other type of currency that can exist. Now, it's not just for gaming, but it's also for other applications, many different type of applications. Oh, we have Mehdi joining us again now. Excellent. So from the point of view is it's now only becoming a real world for non-gamers because Facebook have announced the idea of the metaverse. But the metaverse has been around for years, actually, especially if you're in the gaming space. Now it's coming into other domains of life and the promotion through Meta and MetaVerse and Oculus. And we've had a parallel movement happening to the metaverse and all these, we say, individual universes with the blockchain happening. So blockchain has also been an additional enabler to technologies that will allow us to use tokens or currencies or different types of mechanisms to perform commerce, and not just commerce, but to hold account of what can happen in different worlds. So my simple understanding of the metaverse is I am now going to be able to create digital assets, and I will be able to use those digital assets in different virtual worlds, which before everything was siloed and in one simple space. So the first question I'd like to ask, because of who I have on board, is what is the metaverse? What does it really mean? Maybe we can start with Hussein. Maybe you could give us, somebody who doesn't know about this. I try to give my sort of layman's understanding of it. What is the metaverse, Hussein?
My simplest explanation that I didn't come with it on my own, but just from reading up and researching a lot on this specific topic, the simplest way to think about it is the metaverse is just the new internet. It's the new way we access the internet. It's basically the user interface, the UI. So instead of having mobile internet and just check going on mobile or on desktop, it's going to be spacious. It's going to be a mix of the current mobile with VR, with virtual reality, with mixed reality. So the internet will pop up to the users in the form of this spatial. It's going to be mixed with our current physical reality, and we can jump into the internet in the form of virtual reality, in the form of avatar, or through these very cool headsets. And to reach this to reach the full potential of this new internet, there's going to be a lot of innovation. There's going to be a lot of change in the infrastructure that is enabling the current internet to achieve this, immersive, persistent concept of this new internet. So just a fancy word of the new internet, but basically we are living, or we are currently living in the metaverse. The metaverse is right now. It's happening right now. there are different platforms that are offering a way for you to access a global economy, or not just gaming. So it's gaming, it's education, it's e-commerce, business, everything in the form of avatar or in the form of this virtual reality. So you can connect with people all around the world in an immersive experience. Um, and Web3 is, I mean, just getting ahead of myself, but because
Sure.
Web3 and metaverse, sometimes people interchange both terms, but Web3 is this the infrastructure layer of this user interface. So
Gotcha.
the connectivity, the hardware upgrades, blockchain definitely, and everything enabled by blockchain are just the enablers, a couple of enablers of this new internet.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hussein. Well, what I like about having a panel here now, Antonio, I'm going to ask you the same question, but we've talked a lot over the years. I know you come from a different perspective. So what does the metaverse mean to you, your business, and how you will change what you do? What is the metaverse for you?
I think that basically I would like to kind of like go on the back of the Matthew Ball, which is a metaverse investor, an expert definition. So it's more like and if you actually see his definition, you see that it's basically internet in 3D, right? So because there's some concept that you need to have on, when we talk about metaverse, we have to have clear. The metaverse is like an existing live world that you can, by interacting with the world, you actually change what is in the world, as soon as you actually interact with the world. So you have a 3D world in which you actually can go into, and you can actually change the world around you, or you can interact live with the world, and the world keeps living even without you in. Okay, so it's basically, and the only which has been existing already for a while. The only difference is that now you have the way, the technology to access and to perceive the metaverse changed a lot. So improved, starting from Oculus, and now all the AR things that are gonna come in the future. So because of that, the perception of the metaverse, the perception that you actually feel on yourself of the metaverse is much higher, is another level. Only if you remember Second Life, and it was quite boring, because it wasn't, you could not leave that kind of feeling that you get eventually live now in the new metaverse world now. And then of course all those things that developed because of this technology. So the ability to interact with others, to stay within others, feel that kind of things, allow us to do certain kind of tasks, a certain kind of business that before wasn't really fun. So now you can actually attend classes in the metaverse. You can actually sell things. You can actually eventually have your own kind of commerce within the metaverse, which can touch the meta. We can be in the metaverse, and it can also be actually an extension of the world. So you can actually have exactly. I mean, so and that's why it's interesting actually now. And for the business, we're gonna talk through the panel now. But for the business, there's a lot of new and interesting development.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Antonio. Mehdi, hopefully you can hear us. I know maybe there's a video or bandwidth issue or something. Would you like to try and give an answer to that question? Because we want to start with a baseline of what does the metaverse mean for you and for your business, Mehdi? No, we don't. I think there's a bandwidth connection or something. We'll have to come back to Mehdi at a later stage, hopefully. It's not working at the moment. Okay. Thanks very much. We'll hopefully try and get Mehdi back in because he has some very valuable insights on this. I think we've already touched on, accessing. For most people, the idea of getting into the metaverse is getting in through sort of a gaming channel, or now Oculus, as you just mentioned, Antonio. How do we perceive the future of how we're going to get into? Will everybody have a pair of Oculus headsets, or, how will we, because we're becoming more immersed in this. I'm used to now a couple of AR applications on my phone. I have a virtual headset. I don't use it very often. there is the one extreme. Would somebody wake up in the morning, stick on their headset, and that's all they would do except for eat and go to the toilet for the entire day? That's how immersive it potentially could come. But how do we perceive most of society getting more immersed in what happens here? Hussein, maybe you can answer from a technology point of view. What are the access things that are?
It's going to take time. Just like when I remember I was way younger than I am now, when Nokia came out with the phones and mobile broke into the greater market. It took us a while to move from Nokia to the iPhone, and from the first iPhone to the wide array of different mobile phones and mobile phone providers in the market. So we've been in this, bulky phase of hardware. Right now, there's immense development and innovation in hardware. I know that a couple of companies are actually working on contact lenses that for just mimicking exactly what the VR headsets are doing. Honestly, I don't think that mass adoption for this new immersive internet is going to be through these bulky pieces of hardware. It's Even if it gets cheaper, I don't think people are going to walk around with those weird looking things. It's just very inconvenient. But I mean, right now it is fun. It is for most people. It's more like a new way just to maybe experiment with what this concept of the metaverse is. But it's definitely not a full representation of what it would be sometime, maybe not 10, 20 years. Obviously, it's going to be totally different, but within the coming few years, it's many companies I know that they're going to launch very interesting pieces of hardware. Maybe you're familiar with even Portal or Proto. They changed their name from Portal to Proto. So Proto is one of those companies that beam hologram. It's like a hologram, but it's imagine like a big iPad or a big screen, but you are just basically beamed physically from one place to the other in real time. So companies like those are all developing these pieces of hardware that are just steps in the way of fully realizing the concept of a fully immersive, persistent metaverse.
Oh, absolutely. Like I can, mine is very technical background, Hussein, and in the late 90s, I was part of what you guys may laugh at now called wireless access protocol. So actually setting up mobile operators with internet for the first time. And it was almost text-based browser on little phones at that stage. We even had secure access to banks, everything all like that. But it really didn't get adopted until two things happened. One is the hardware. So if we think about hardware, the iPhone came out in 2007. I remember I was on the job in Kentucky and I brought 7 iPhone 1s home to Ireland to friends and family. And then secondly was the bandwidth. We were on 1G and then 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. So, there are two major infrastructure pieces that were required. And I've even been thinking a lot about not necessarily the metaverse, but how would I give you, for example, my CV that was verifiable by all users? Like the government could verify my birth cert, the university could verify my college degree, an employer could verify, and that would mean that security certificates would need to be normal in institutions, and they're not. So I'm just giving an example of. Until certain adoptions happen, as fantastic as an idea is, certain infrastructures need to be in place for that multiplier effect and that mass adoption to happen. So right. I actually like your idea because it was a very practical answer. Many people are gung-ho, oh, this is it, it's going to happen that way. But you said, we're not going to adopt massively with this type of hardware. And I totally agree with you. So thanks for what I would consider a very valid opinion, Antonio, how would you see we might access the the metaverse, and we've talked a lot about finance, and I'll give you a couple of ideas that I think about is if it comes to investing, maybe we don't even directly do it. At the moment, banks, offer services, and at the back end, or brokers offer services, and the back end, they do all that heavy lifting or work or understanding of technology, and we work with them. Will the normal person in the street actually get to the point of investing on a daily basis through these interfaces, or will they come to more knowledgeable people, either like yourself or we say institutions that are currently trusted? Whether there will be in the future is another question. How will we access this world going forward in your mind, the metaverse?
I think it will depend from the kind of activity we'll do and how the technology will develop. I think the S curve of the hardware part would be strictly connected to the development of the metaverse itself. So as more the technology will advance, more people will actually feel the experience better, and as they feel the experience better, they will actually join more. Before, like a few years ago, the first Oculus was really bad. It was like you had the cable, you could not move, and the experience was really bad. So that would not really push people. No, the reason why now we're actually talking more about something that has already been existing for many years is because the experience is becoming more and more actually better. It's becoming more like real, more realistic. So actually feeling more. I mean, you in the next few years, probably even months, you're gonna see the AR coming up. Probably Apple's gonna come with the AR, with those augmented reality device, and Meta's gonna come up there, and then you're gonna start to see gloves, right? And you're gonna see, you're gonna see all the technology of the hands, and how you feel it, the touch, and all those things, and this is gonna really change, even more the game, and people, it's gonna attract much more people coming into the ecosystem. So when it comes to work, for example, I do find, it's very, I don't know if you live in a city, in a like very crowded city, like I mostly do because I travel around. It's very hard sometimes. It takes too much time to do certain kind of tasks, like going and buying things, or maybe going and talking to, having meetings, even the meetings, right? Like, for example, we're now having a meeting, but we don't share the same environment. We don't feel like if you would feel if we be in a metaverse. Like, you know what? I would love to do an interview with you guys in the next few weeks into the metaverse, just to show you, how the feeling is different. How do we feel and share the same environment? And
that would be a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. We can all have our avatar, and we can all be around, and we can actually see ourselves, the difference of this kind of perception that we actually having now, which is realistic. We can talk, but there's certain things that we cannot do. Like, I don't feel you here with me. We don't share an environment together. We cannot share the same perspective of an object. Also, I cannot talk to Hussein while maybe you are talking, or we cannot. It's different, right? And in the metaverse, all those feelings are much more enhanced, so you feel much more live, and you can see the difference. So I think some of the things which are convenient now. For example, if I ask you, what I mean, compared to maybe 3 years ago, what part of your business meeting are now happen on Zoom rather than live? Probably more than 50%, because you see that is more convenient. It's more convenient because by the time you go somewhere, you take a train, a plane, you lose the full day, and you can actually have the meeting like we doing now in 1 hour. So it's much better. And if you can have, at the same time, even more feelings enhancing the way we stay together, up to a point where really it's not really more essential really to be face to face, because anyway the same kind of 90% of the feelings, or maybe even more, that will be in the metaverse. Probably people will start to pick that thing. So in many things which are more convenient, I think the metaverse will start from there. I mean, think about fitness. I mean,
Sure.
people were buying like I bought the Spanish peloton, right? And but now that I train on the metaverse, I mean, I really feel that I mean, when you will have now those devices like in AR, and you will have like also device that you can use within the game, I think it will be really a lot of more people will join the fitness in the metaverse. It's amazing. I mean, it's much more fun. It's much more engaging. You can actually gamify the fitness. I think that field is really interesting, and all the public relation things. I mean, I was walking to in one of the MetaVerse like a few days ago, and I was going through a museum, a historian museum, and there was a class in the back. So that there was this school. Well, it's a history lecture, university lecture, which was actually giving a lecture on some history topic. And on the back, he has a museum with all the things he was actually selling. So you go around, you see those things, and he actually was telling you what was this item about. You can actually look the item in 3D very closely. He can explain to you the item, and then he can deliver to your house. So it's quite interesting for art as well, and for people that like those kind of things. I think there will be more, a lot of more engagement.
Excellent. Thanks, Antonio. Hi, Mehdi. I'm just going to say a quick hello. Hopefully, you're with us now.
Hi. Can you guys see me? Is everything okay now?
Yeah, we can see you and hear you clearly.
Perfect.
Okay. So what we were talking with Antonio about how it's developing at the moment and how we can access the metaverse. We say better as time goes on, and the technologies are heavy and bulky now, but we are going to start to become more immersed in what happens. I think he's actually gone again. We will try again at a later stage. So I like that, Antonio. And a couple of ideas came into my head. So 3 ideas came into my head while you were talking. What can we not do right now that we would if we were actually physically met? So the first thing I would do, I like when I meet somebody, I can shake their hand. So could I shake Hussein's hand and your hand and say hello? I like, and I'm, in a normal business meeting or even a family dinner, you can have multiple conversations going on at the same time. But at the moment, because of this interface, kind of, you guys have to let me talk, and then we let one and another talk. It's a very sort of binary type who gets to talk situation. And the other one is, and maybe you even notice this, I have a camera, and the camera is slightly above my screen. And what that means is I have a tendency to look at the pictures of you guys. I like looking at your face as you're talking, but that makes it look like I'm looking down. So I would develop a screen where the camera is in the middle of the screen and the TV is around it, because then I would get the impression of looking in your eyes. So when you start thinking, I was thinking, what are the things I would like to be able to do with these 2 guys that I can't now? And it's like, shake their hand, look them in the eye, and maybe have a conversation with Antonio at the same time as Hussein. And I can't do them now. So what I'm very curious about your proposition, if we were to have a meeting in the metaverse, could I do these 3 things in some way that I can't do it now,
Absolutely, you can. The only thing you cannot probably feel is the handshake. You can actually do the handshake physically. You can actually see the shaking hands, but we can we don't really feel anything. So we can like. Sure. Now, I mean, it depends where we meet. Like, for example, now there's a Horizon Venus. Before, you can actually hug people, and because people were taking advantage of these situations in the thing. So now, actually, the Horizon Venus put like a sort of like distance. So actually, when we try to,
distance.
Yeah, when we try to get together, there's a kind of force that pushes back. But if we push enough, there's tricks to actually shake hands. It's more complicated than before because people were like doing funny stuff there. So, but yes, we can do all of these, and we can actually share something that we like. We can probably be inside a house that you actually built for us, or maybe we could actually, now there's some places like some app where you can actually make your own house, like your own furniture, and maybe put the pictures. So we could be now in a room where you can actually have the pictures of you or me, or the metaverse, or maybe Mark Zuckerberg, or anything that you actually so you can walk around. You can walk us around through your house, or maybe we can share something nice, maybe a nice view of the mountain, a nice view of Dublin or Hong Kong or wherever. I mean, that's interesting.
It sounds like something I'm going to have to invest a little bit of time and figure out how to set up with Antonio.
But actually,
Wendy's is now Wendy's is not the best example of food, because we don't eat at Wendy's. But what I'm trying to say is that there's now restaurants that will have the possibility to for us to maybe international chain for us to actually share an environment together and order
Yeah.
food, so food can come actually through the door. I mean, from the physical world, and we can actually share somehow the same taste, of a food, which is interesting because I was actually listening some of the restaurants people trying to have this kind of thing already in place.
Excellent. Oh, I'd like to, Hussein, did you have a thought there?
Yeah, I actually, I was just adding on Antonio's comments on what we feel and what you can mimic in the virtual or the metaverse versus what you can do in physical life. And there's actually been a lot of innovation when it comes to the gloves and the fully haptic suits and
Yeah.
fully sensory hardware. I've just seen a very short video. Was it? I think it was yesterday. In South Korea, there's this company that's developing these gloves, and they launched the first edition. I think maybe it was just a little while ago, and they had one lady try it out. She was in the studio, had a fully a full just a normal VR headset, but
Yeah.
the gloves were actually enabling her to connect with her deceased daughter. So they were just taking a video of her in real life
Yeah.
and videotaping her experience and her emotions with her. I mean, it's a super accurate replica of her daughter in the metaverse. So she was
Wow.
sitting with her, having a meal, having a conversation. Obviously, not a. It wasn't a robotic it wasn't like it was
Sure.
mostly it sounded like a normal because it was all in Korean. But she was super overwhelmed. She had this experience where she connect with it. She was also in tears, but when she calmed down, you could see her feel her shoulders holding her, stroking her hair. So it seemed that she connected with this
Wow.
virtual
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
So right now, even in one of the blockchain-based worlds, um, it's in Somnium Space. It's one of those super advanced VR worlds. Um, Most of the time, I like to watch the founder give presentations or seminars in world, and he'll be in a fully haptic suit, and feeling and touching other people who are in world and things, and interacting with things in the metaverse or in that virtual world is as if he's in the physical world. So people might think that this is just maybe years ahead, but the accessibility of these technologies is it might be out of reach for many people, but it's
Sure.
happening right now. It's happening right now.
Absolutely. Just on that point, then, there are everybody, I would say, nearly knows about Facebook and probably particular games that are sort of I think esports are watched more than the Olympics and the World Cup soccer now at this stage. But maybe I could ask both of you, what are some key companies, except for those obvious big names like Facebook and the e-games, that are showing us, like that Korean company that you may have spotted and said, here are some fantastic ideas that are blooming and potentially could blow up in a good way. You know what I mean? They could become fantastic companies. Have any of you a couple of examples? I know you've just given us one, Hussein. Have you any other examples of here's what somebody should watch out for in terms of companies coming up in the metaverse?
There's
Yeah,
please go ahead.
no, go ahead. I insist.
Well, I mean, there's many. I mean, as an investor and as for example, we do equity, equity analysis. We always, and venture capitalists, we always look for new things. So, but I think that for now, most of them will be really bets that we don't really know how they will develop. To play the metaverse, if the question is about how which would be the best way to invest in the metaverse and to take advantage of it in maybe something that will have a better chance because already develop a moat. I think, for example, all the infrastructure of the gaming or the software gaming is very, very important. It's essential for the metaverse. And for example, Unity is one of those companies that we monitor very closely. I mean, it's not cheap. It's kind of like already a bit more expensive, but I think that most of all the games, 60% of all the games, all the most applications that are has to do with the VR gaming in the metaverse are done on Unity, and the ones that are not are done on Unreal engines, which is the other one which you can only buy through Tencent. So which is now is not probably the best way to invest it. So I think exposure to Unity it's really really good when we talk about equity. Yeah, when we talk about like early stage company, there is many, but we don't know. There's one. For example, I was looking the other day. They did around 130 million. I think Oddo is the name, and they are actually working something which I think is very interesting. It's a technology to train doctors in VR.
Okay.
They actually, it's very expensive, but what they're doing it, they're using this technology to have doctor training, like so do surgery, do certain kind of things, and do it very realistically, so you can actually open the body and actually do the body, and maybe try to touch the body and try to see if you made a mistake, if the how the person will react, if the person will die if you do certain kind of things. That's amazing, I think. And why I noticed that training is one of the activity that for example would be professional training would be one of the top area of the metaverse for sure. And there's not really much attention to it, but I noticed that because I don't know if you guys know, but I'm a pilot. I'm a professional. I was a professional pilot before. I have a multi-engine license. I took it when I was very young, and I worked as a pilot before. And I remember when my time, I'm talking about 97, 98. So at that time, the flight simulator was really expensive, and we had a very shitty kind of simulator in the flight school, which cost like, I don't know, at the time was $500, $600 an hour, and you had to kind of like having the simulation with the next, you had to have the senior instructor, and the experience was not really amazing, and it was good for the flow, because you had to touch all the things live, but it couldn't really substitute the real training. Then of course there was more advanced when you were doing what is called type rating, which was when you actually were going on to develop the training on the bigger aircraft. You had to fly to special places where there was a more kind of like advanced simulator. Like I did one with Alitalia, so you are actually you were like in a big sort of like hall when but it was really expensive. It was like 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 for training, and sometimes you only could do it when you actually do the type rating for the specific. So you had to be hired before actually do the training, and it was very limited as well, the amount of hours. But then I put the glass on, right, and I did some kind of like flight simulator, and wow, I mean, you can really start to feel the plane the same way, and you can see that the plane reacts to the same kind of things. You can see if the flap goes up, and the training, the you can see the all the aerodynamics that actually reacts in the same way it would a real plane. So you can actually have so much more training and much cheaper that that would really increase the ability of the pilots, and in other fields probably of the doctors, etc. So I think this is very interesting. So that all these companies that are developing professional training that until now was more difficult, I think they could have an amazing future if they get a move. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I could see that. And like the whole education, whether it's professional or even kids, they're very limited to like one book a year at the moment. Who says the access to information now would allow them to take on very different projects even at 10 years of age as well.
I mean, guys, I mean, I am amazed. Like, I mean, the ability to become really experienced and educated on internet now versus 15 years ago, it's crazy. If you guys think that I remember when I was young, I don't know if you guys had this in your countries, but when I was young, I remember elementary school, to do research, I had to do to the library of the town. and it was
Yep.
like kind of like, you know, you had to go and you need to ask for the book, and the lady was taking the book, and then you had to books and to look, and the book was nothing.
Mhm.
I mean, and now you can learn so many things. You can learn how to code, you can learn how to do finance, you can learn mathematics. I mean, sometimes I take extra courses. I mean, and I do get the tutor, they help me online and things, and you can learn so many things that we're going to become much more. I mean, if you can leverage this technology, and in the metaverse will be even more. We can become so much more educated than before. That it's going to be very competitive world out there.
You made me think when you mentioned the flight simulator, Antonio. Like a big part of what kind of flavor of the month at the moment is decentralization. But for me, decentralization has been happening for years. In the 1960s and 70s, every big company had mainframes. Now every individual has a phone, has a PC, has Oculus glasses if they want. Years ago, we used to have to go to a travel agent to book a flight ticket. Now you actually do everything via an internet page. And nearly everybody has a bedroom or a sitting room where they have more technology in one room right now than, you know, a major company would have done 30 years ago. So decentralization is already happening. Now, blockchain is another method of decentralization. I'd like to move on to that a little bit. And people think it's new, but it's actually been happening for a long time in many industries, in many ways, because of the technology enablement. What additional decentralization utilities is blockchain giving us that all of these other ones are not? So maybe I'll pass that maybe to Hussein as what in addition to all of these things that are technologies that are at an individual level now that were not, blockchain is doing something extra. What is it?
It's in a nutshell, it's enabling for the first time digital ownership and the transfer of value online. I mean, the internet was missing this piece of technology, or that final piece of native or digitally native exchange of value.
Yeah.
So it started with Bitcoin being the digital currency, and then it expanded into this enabler of creating a token of any sort that would anchor that, and you could anchor this token to a digital piece of content, or actually a physical thing. So for many people in the current web or the current internet, the kind of content we create, there's mass replication.
Yeah.
You can't track the ownership, or you can't prove for certain the authenticity and the provenance of a piece of content online. But with blockchain and this or these permissionless or open blockchains, when I say open, I mean they're not governed by a central party. It's a ledger that just records the transfer of ownership of practically anything that could be digital or physical online. And so it just enables this new global economy. So anyone around the world with an internet connection can create content, can own the content online, transfer, monetize, do whatever they want with this content online, which was never before enabled in the current internet that we've been used to. So I think
Yeah.
this is just a major revolution. I think blockchain is going to change the course of humanity's interactions, basically.
Yeah, I like that, and I also think it's very much at the beginning of it because if we talk about value, we kind of are talking about money, and it has three sort of main attributes. It's a store of value like gold or something, and you can put it away, or it's we say a medium of exchange, so I can buy things from you, and or you can buy things from me or anybody, and then it's a unit of account. How much do we owe each other for a reason? So what I've seen so far, and you guys can correct me where I'm wrong, is Bitcoin, at least as one of those elements, has become a store of value. Now you need to add other things like layer 2 and all other technologies, which aren't quite trusted yet and aren't quite at mass adoption level. So we're not really getting into medium of exchange, which is kind of, millions of transactions per second, like Visa and MasterCard and whatever else. So it is bringing that in there. It's a world that's about to develop, but it's very much at the core element. But I think it's inspiring us and, companies and industries to develop those additional layers, so we can not just do store of value, but also it could become, a medium of exchange where we all use it, and a unit of account, and the main unit of account is a reserve currency. So, I like the guy, Michael Saylor, for example. His nominated currency for MicroStrategy is Bitcoin. So the balance sheet is written in Bitcoin, not in US dollar. The profit and losses. So how, that's the ideal world, because we have a lot of Bitcoin advocates, and they want to go in that direction because it's also, new. It's kind of a fantastic world. Where will we go? We see the possibilities, but then between invested interests and everything else, how far down that road will we be able to get? What about you, Antonio? How do you see decentralization and sort of blockchain making a difference?
I think, just getting back to what you were saying, I think that kind of, let's call it for somehow, there was more like the initial storytelling of Bitcoin, just to promote it as a blockchain, as a, as a currency, as a, to try to give value to Bitcoin. And I think that Bitcoin lost the war with Ether. I think the unit of account is actually Ether. And if you notice, Ether, it is a unit account for NFT, for things. But I think that we're moving away from that kind of storytelling, because we understand that now the blockchain is much more than just currency. And whatever one day, one of those will be currency will be that, some of them will definitely be store value for sure, but if they would be or not in unit of account or medium of exchange, we understood is not really an issue anymore. What we understood now is that blockchain can be used as a technology to allow democratization. And that's the most important part of the full blockchain. And for example, if we bring this back to the metaverse and we bring it to the paradigm of Meta, we know that Meta knows and he feels that it would not be able to do what was probably done by Apple and Google with the apps, or to become the platform on which everything is on top, because and you cannot actually it cannot become like the head of the metaverse, because he knows that through blockchain we can democratize even the platform itself, and the platform can be so much decentralized that you don't need to put your destiny in the hands of one company, of one person. Like, for example, some of those in games or other things they developed on Facebook, or maybe the same Facebook itself, had the issue with Apple. So this crisis of business that are born into another platform, and they depend, or their destiny depends on them, or their policy to live. They won't happen anymore. And also when it comes to information, so the way information is now, I mean, this is crazy that we have platforms that are able to block news, or strong enough to disseminate maybe fake news, or maybe when it comes to for example to gaming, we have policy that will stop a big company to be able to scale anymore, because the main platform companies decided to get into the space, so they want to compete with them. So I think that's really really important. So I think, and the blockchain technology will allow that. It will allow this kind of democratization. I don't think in 50-60 years time we'll have company running the same way they run now, because of the DAO. The DAO is extremely powerful instrument of democratization of a company, of actually participation of people to the policy of the company, or to the policies someday of the world, of any other things that can happen. So I think all this technology will allow a lot of more transparency. and I think that part is probably even more important than understanding if or not, the currencies which will happen. And if you, I think that's now secondary, versus to what people are understanding about the blockchain now.
Oh, absolutely. Like in a way, we started off with Hussein and value doesn't. I interpreted his answer a little bit on my own side that it meant currency and money, but there's value in setting up fair and just systems. So the DAO is a way to set up a governance body where I'm not sure we could eliminate, but we could minimize corruption within governance of whatever is happening, because there'll be clear policies and rules for actions, for votings, for everything of that, which will be automated and any person would have influence as long as they had voting rights, but they wouldn't have corruptible influence because the system itself would be doing the management of that. And the value within the DAO, I think, is extreme. And I don't think the awareness of how useful that is to human society, where we could, I'm not saying eliminate, because I don't like extreme words, but we could definitely reduce or minimize, we say, corruption and invested interests wherever DAOs became the point of interaction for governance of a particular group of people, etc.
Right.
Maybe I'll ask you a little bit about the DAO, Hussein. Have you had any interactions with it, or what's your expectations within that part of the world?
Well, going back just to linking value to coordinating human behavior to achieve a certain thesis or achieve a certain goal. So this is the whole concept of a DAO is just we as a group have a certain thesis in mind. To achieve this, we pool our resources, could be our experiences, in addition to our funds to achieve this goal. So going back to just how blockchain is enabling the exchange of value and coordinating human beings, and not just human beings, could be human beings and identities connected to things. So IoT,
sure,
and how things are more connected to the internet now, and just feeding all these kinds of data. You are bringing all of these things together to achieve something, and this something could be done in a transparent way on a blockchain that just says who did what, and bring all of these people together to achieve and to vote or to have a say on how things go to achieve the end goal. Going back to, again, the value creation, DAOs can be whipped up from think about an influencer now who's creating some kind of content. She can kick off her social token or a token that is anchored to her performance or her brand, and people can pitch in and have a part ownership of that brand. A DAO can be whipped up from this token generation, and the brand is not now governed by that one influencer. It's governed by her community. The community and the greater market dictates the value of that token anchored to that community, and they can all partake in the best decisions to take this brand to the next level or achieve some kind of goal or bring some kind of value, in addition to farming talent and expertise from that greater community to expand upon the thesis. So my personal experience, I've when it comes to DAOs, I've advised some startups on how they can go about to experiment or shift to a DAO structure. Most people want to jump all in, but there are many DAO tools that you can experiment with before going full DAO and before going full decentralized, because fully decentralized, because you kind of, if you have like an organization of 100 200 people, you lack in efficiency, and it's not that sustainable to, especially in the beginning, to ship out a product or a service. You need to be well organized and get familiar with this new concept, in addition to get familiar with these new pieces of software and protocols that enable the coordination between the participants in the organization. Um, so it's something I think that is going to evolve. The spaces, most of the DAOs are in experimentation phase. Some have huge treasuries. I mean, we think of Uniswap, Compound. Many of these DAOs
Yeah.
out there have immense treasuries, and they're experimenting with ways how they can unlock this liquidity into different opportunities, and how they can bring in expertise and talent to utilize this capital.
Yeah, you made me, you prompted me to think of one thing, Hussein. There are DAO-like organizations, not necessarily on the blockchain, and a part of fantastic energy is startups. But when you've got a startup, you're going to have, discussions around equity, around options, around commissions, around salaries, all this type of thing. And they are not easy negotiations because everybody has their own, we say, subjective opinion of what it is. Now, I came across a book which I read, and there's a website as well called Slicing Pie. And you basically give a value to your time, to connections you bring, to sales you make. And then the software acts like a DAO, as in then it allocates your relative equity position based on what you actually did or what value you brought to the company, etc. So in my mind, it's a very DAO-like tool to allow startups to, we say, have fair negotiations, because they all agree up front who's going to get what as this evolves. Or if someone disappears, what will happen to their shares? And, people come and go and everything like this. And I actually like that idea, because up until now, it's very much been, particular, we say, veteran investors or anybody, or even the startup person, are all in it for themselves. They're against everybody else. Each stakeholder is fighting their own corner for a bigger slice of the pie. Whereas a DAO type construct around that gives a fair value for each of the elements that are brought to the table. So I think that's going to be very, very powerful,
The incentive baked in, I mean, the incentive mechanism, the game theory baked in this new organization structure, people are incentivized by nature to add value to the DAO, because it automatically translates to a higher value of the token that they hold as a DAO member or a DAO contributor. So it's just, I mean, people, and this takes us maybe to the how the future of work is going to evolve in the metaverse. People are going to contribute and dedicate their time to different projects, different DAOs, get paid in so many different currencies. It could be in a fungible token, could be in a non-fungible token, could be a mix of both, could be a token anchored asset. So it's and the market's going to dictate the value of these different currencies and these different tokens. It's not going to be just one currency or two or three that governs the new internet. It's going to be these different kinds of currencies, different types of tokens, all integrated within different micro economies, and people can exchange freely these tokens on exchanges and carry these tokens from one platform to the other. So this is like the bigger realization of this new open economy.
Oh, absolutely. And you make me think of a difficulty, and obviously there'll be a solution once there's a difficulty. We as humans are not used to managing a basket of currencies. We're used to, whether it's the euro, the dollar, an individual currency, or, maybe we have some real estate or whatever, we have currencies, but we're not used to, maybe, as you say, I could work for 6 different organizations and they're all giving me different types of tokens. I have to manage that. So the question is, when somebody will develop something to simplify that, we would all need our own sort of currency basket managing capability in order to make things happen. So it brings along new opportunity, but obviously new complexities then for the individual to manage. So it could be interesting to see how that's going to go. You did mention one thing, and I'd love maybe, Antonio, your thoughts on that is how would you, you deal with say multiple currencies, and maybe let's add one thing that Hussein said into the picture: fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens. We're not going to these because they've become very popular. How would we manage a basket of different tokens, we'll call them, and some of those tokens are in NFT format? What does that look like? What does your portfolio or your wallet look like?
I think the new native, the new generations, and I see even maybe not even, I mean, just the Z generations and the others, and even millennials, they're becoming much more familiar with having, and the ones that have work out have to do with the blockchain, they became very much more familiar with they used to have different currencies. Like we all our friends, we know, that we have different kind of things. That we have AVAX, we have Luna, we have those kind of tokens, and we switch and swap from token to token as opportunity arise. To stake, tokens, some tokens, and to get more income, or maybe we think there's more potential in one token, we move around. So even the concept of wallet, like any wallet, like think about MetaMask, for example. We already know that our MetaMask will have like a sort of like a distributions of different kind of tokens according to what we see, how they see the potentials of those, and how we actually, or maybe according to our use. For example, if there is developers, or there is other type of people that will need more token because they interact more with platform or with other type of blockchain rather than others. So I think I think it will be fine. We getting more used to this versus, for example, our parents, or or people that maybe are just used to use one coin, and they think that's that's where the value is, because we all know now that especially when it comes to fiat currency, the fiat currency will eventually lose value, and will be the and so we need to kind of like find value in different kind of things, and different kind of things that are driven by a demand, which is not just a real demand, but it's not imposed by by the governments. And I think that's one thing that is it's changing now. So I think people are actually aware of this. Think about people that some of them are not even educated at the elementary level, and they still have now in some countries they understood the power of Bitcoin. Like in Salvador, or any other country like Venezuela or Argentina. People are learning. I mean, in Lebanon now there is older people that to start to change all the time Bitcoin, or maybe other kind of coins that are easier to and then they learn which is the coin that I more need. I mean, if I want to go buy the bread, it's no point for me to buy Bitcoin, so probably I will use I don't know, I will use another one, and they will start to learn, and maybe in that particular country or town, their own cluster of people will use a particular coin. They understand the advantage of that coin versus others, and we start to use their one, and then they will learn another one, and things like that. So they will experience and learn. So I think that's what happened. So they will have probably the portfolio where they know that when they go to buy the bread, they will have that coin. When they go to deal with international clients, they will probably deal with another one. And if they want to do NFT or other things, they will probably better go in another blockchain.
Yeah. Two thoughts popped into my head, Antonio, as you were talking. Is around the economy on a bigger scale, we have a definition at the moment of what GDP is. What the gross domestic product, what's the real value of goods and services within a nation. Now, a nation is a company or an organization, if you want to call it. And there seems to be, I don't want to get into regulations or anything, but there seems to be now that the nation state doesn't have a full, ownership of what's happening in the metaverse. And they don't have any choice because of cryptography, but they will have to find a way to collaborate with what happens in the metaverse, because the borders are not geographical anymore. The borders are within cyberspace. And so the definition of what we know, I think in Italy they call it the pill, in America they call it GDP, etc. It is going to change, because the nation state now is becoming, I imagine the nation state something like the World Cup soccer, but esports now is much more than World Cup soccer. So I think what happens in the metaverse or in the cyber universe will become greater than in terms of value transition than what's happening in the physical world, because it can move faster in multilateral ways.
Yeah.
You know, this is where DAO and its value of how we collaborate between organizations without hostility. Obviously, I'm not a fan of war in any way, but that we actually collaborate. So for me, things like the UN are actually going to are going to be looked upon as museum pieces, or at least pieces of the physical world. This new cyber world, and I was looking it up recently. There is international laws for cyber security. There's 154 of them, and how we should work together and what we should manage to do that. This is becoming a huge space, the metaverse, because we have to also remember there's the physical world and what's going to come in there. So I'm curious to what your thoughts on how this is going to move forward, because no one who's losing power likes to lose power. And if you don't have control of what you used to have control of, and that's people's capability to exchange with each other without your interference, we could say, is now becoming possible. And you know, like I think Michael Saylor says it very well. If I have a cold wallet and someone puts a gun to my head, says, you know, tell me what's there. Well, you know, even if they shoot me, they still can't get what's off the wallet, you know, or I can have a multi-sig and 2 or 3 friends can have a. So violence, this is actually a deterrent to violence, I see, in a good way. And reason why it came up is because you talked about DOA. That's about collaboration and how we do that in fair manners, not just within a DOA structure, but inter DOA. And that, you know, so for me, it's starting to shift how we could potentially see the world in terms of the physical universe plus the metaverse. You call it an extension earlier on, Antonio. It is an extension, but we will have to collaborate. The interface between that extension and our current reality is very, very, I would say, undefined at the moment. And people like us are trying to discover what are the ways that we could do that. Have you any thoughts on how society, I think this is a bigger question maybe, and maybe not what we planned, but how society might shift now because of us moving into a non-physical world?
I think I can pitch in with a little story regarding the future of and it's not the future, it's been happening I think for more than a year now, where people, obviously more than a year, the access to this global economy and the new types of jobs. I think most of us are definitely familiar with the game Axie Infinity and the whole the play to earn movement. So basically, it's a blockchain based game. People have to buy into the game, acquiring in game assets, and it's like Pokemon, but it's on blockchain, and.
Sure.
People in developing nations, mostly in Southeast Asia, some in Africa and Latin America, they started playing this game and earn in-game token rewards. And what was fascinating was that this token reward was then used as a medium of exchange in local economies. So this same token, which is called a smooth love potion, you would imagine that one of the other cryptocurrencies, maybe Ether, maybe Bitcoin, could be used in a local economy as a medium of exchange. But how the market dictated and decided that this token has value, and people then started pricing local goods and services, products in this token. So I remember in the Philippines last year, vendors started accepting this in-game token reward as a medium of exchange, payment for medicine, payment for tuition. So this is, and I remember the government. There were many rumors that the government is going to shut it down in the Philippines or ban this game, but nothing happened. People kept playing on the people are still playing the game. People are still exchanging this token for other currencies and paying for this, for this thing they acquired in the ether in the digital world and to pay for physical things. So that was extremely interesting. There's another layer that just goes on top of that with the whole financial vertical that is where these guilds or gaming guilds services are offering finance to these individuals and these players around in the Philippines to have access to microloans or whatever. So I mean, this is just evolving from this one little sector, and to imagine what would happen this greater global economy is just going to be mind blowing.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, Hussein. Two things really. We're back to value and finance in a way, and even credit as you're talking about. And what an organization now is somehow a brand, and how does that brand expand? So it expanded even from the cyberverse, if we want to call it, into the physical world. So it's the opposite almost. Something that has value in this sort of unmaterial world is now taking value in the material world. So that means it's a bilateral exchange. So it's not just it's happening in there. We can take it in here, or we can put it in there in both directions. So brand building is going to take on a new role, and whether that's for a country or a company or an influencer or a family, I'm not even sure how it would work in that. And then value exchange, whether that's through the systems of DAOs or the ability to exchange, medium of exchange, store of value type things. We've a lot of exciting discoveries to work with. How probably going to come close to an end now, guys. I think we've had a fantastic discussion. I'd like maybe both of you, because I think you've been very insightful in different areas of this. If you had to give someone who's sort of new to I like this type of question because I have two older sons who are just finishing college, etc. And you were to give them some advice around what should they look at, what should they keep an eye out for, or learn a little bit about in order to maybe take part in this opportunity. Maybe Antonio, I could ask you first.
I just want to reconnect very quickly to what you said before, because it was interesting how metaverse, because we were talking about value, about currency, about competing currency in the future. Yeah. We always had competing sort of unit of account in the past, and sometimes if you look at history, an MMT will explain to you how these things works, but it's been always very difficult for some country to push people to work under the demand of their particular currency, to create demand for a particular currency. And I didn't know they had to do that with violence. And if you remember when the Dutch went into different kind of islands, they needed a workforce to build roads. They could not really convince them to take their money, take their currency, because those people, native Indians there, they did not care. They had as a unit of account stone, and they were exchanging stone, and they had this big stone outside their house, and bigger was the stone, bigger was the value of the wealth. So in order to convince them to work, they either to confiscate the stone or put a tax on the house, and the tax was gonna be paid in their currency. And if the tax was not paid, the house would be burned. Okay, and so that you create the demand for the currency. So now we're gonna be in a world where the government need to understand how to create demand for the money, because internationally, when we're gonna be in a more cosmopolitan type of decentralized world, where demand for particular currency, token of money, can actually take a different kind of situation, and some currency might be more, because why would a Russian guy now not be more inclined, that maybe lives in the metaverse and maybe exchange their business or their even part of their life into a different world? Because now the metaverse is becoming also part of your life. I mean, it's not only a life on the side, it's also part of life. You spend 3 hours there, you have friends there, you have business there, it's part of your life. So why would you not be more inclined to save in different kind of currency rather than maybe the ruble, because maybe it's more dangerous, or for example I don't know, somebody from Libya or from Lebanon, why would he not more inclined to save money? And when you cannot really confiscate them anymore, where you cannot actually push them to actually take a particular currency, then some currency would really be struggling, to create demand. So that's interesting. And the metaverse will probably play also a role into this in terms of like decentralization and kind of like more ability to create demand, because people will actually see how in that world a particular currency versus another could be more effective, could be more long lasting, or eventually could be even give you possibility to access more products as well. Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. When it comes to the best way to I think that when things are too theoretical, people that at the beginning they don't really understand. So I think that the best way to actually do understand the value of the metaverse, understand the potential, is just take some Oculus, put it on, and start to play, go in, full time, like spend hours and hours, maybe a few hours in the metaverse every day, and start to experience the world. And then when you understand the potentials really, and then you start to study as you see, according to your background and things, you start to understand what could be the things that will work or not, and what the things that are for you or not for you. And I think that's the best way. I think the easiest way, just buy Oculus and start to work in, because that's where you feel the experience, right? That's where you feel actually what is happening.
Excellent. I really like that, Antonio. And kind of also, as a father of kids, gives me hope for the future that, currencies might not all be forced to be legal tender. As you were talking, we have to pay in certain currencies, but they're actually going to work on merit going forward.
Right, I mean, if you all meet now in the metaverse and we want to do some business, me and you, Hussein is in Egypt now, and probably we all know that we don't want to use their currency to get paid or to do a business with, right? And you probably you'll be probably okay with euro, but maybe if I tell you Ether or Bitcoin because you have other business, maybe you'll accept. So we will be like there will be like established consensus on what will be among some parties, which is the most suitable currency for us, and probably will be the one which will be more decentralized, will be the one that could probably keep more value, because we don't have to be worried about losing it in few few hours, the value, and
sure.
and probably the one which is easier to also pass around. So so there'll be competing currency depending also on the platform we are actually working on and things like that.
Brilliant, Antonio. Thank you very much. Hussein, maybe the same question to you, as in, what advice would you potentially give to people who are not as aware, but would like to be aware earlier rather than later?
It's I mean, for your kids, I mean, it's an amazing time to be alive, because this new world is has way more opportunities, the way less barriers to entry for a lot of people around the world to contribute, to participate in work, utilizing their, let's say, their analog skill sets in this new world. Just reskill or upskill your talents, or get acquainted with very simple tasks, with very simple things. Maybe if you think about just whipping up a wallet, and I think we lost Jonathan. Maybe
we did.
Yeah.
Some issue today.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Sorry, it was me. It was me this time. Simple things was the last word I heard. Hussein, apologies.
No worries. I was just saying that it's amazing, because people just have this opportunity now to utilize their analog skill sets to engage in this new global borderless economy, and be remunerated for their time in many different ways. Like I said before, in many different types of currencies. My best advice is just to go out there, get your hands dirty, whip up a wallet, create your wallet, start experimenting with these new things in the blockchain world, because blockchain is going to create this parallel world besides the Web2 centralized internet that we know of today. But people, when they discover the opportunities and how they can unlock these opportunities by just developing very simple skill sets that would unlock so much value, where they're just going to ditch the current setup we have today. So yeah, I mean, just join a DAO, join different communities, participate in whichever way or form. Ask a lot of stupid questions. I still ask a lot of stupid questions. There are no stupid questions in this new world, and connect with amazing. There are a lot of amazing smart brains in this new internet or this metaverse. So connect and share your knowledge.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much both for a much wider conversation. That can kept to a very narrow level, but I think we touched on many areas which we could go down the rabbit hole of each one of them. People will be interested in this, and I'd love to know how would it be best if someone wanted to get in contact with you? Where would you be available or accessible to people? Hussein, where would someone, if they wanted to get in contact with you?
The best way is on Twitter. So on Twitter, I'm at MetaVerse. So yeah, Twitter is the best place to find me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. And Antonio, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, what's the best way to connect?
There's two ways. I mean, there's Twitter. I have Antonio Velardo, and you can find me there. But I also have a blog, antoniovelardo.com, and you can find me there.
Fantastic. It's been a great conversation, guys, and an education as well. I appreciate your time, and you've also now given me a task to go and find out how do I set up a meeting in the universe so the three of us can meet that way.
Yes, absolutely.
And we post that. So I'm excited about the homework that you guys have given me,
Yeah, I look forward to see your avatar.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you very, very much, and take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.